inside a post-George Floyd Minneapolis, Minnesota. Guys, this is a video I've been wanting to react to. I have not watched it yet, but this is going to be a live reaction. Again, my hometown, my birth city, absolutely devastated by everything that happened in 2020. Seeing my city on fire, seeing politicians tell us it's a mostly peaceful protest. That all pained me. So let's go ahead and just take a dive into this doc. And let's see what they found from the reports on the street.
Wendy's got set on fire.
I think Wendy's is on fire.
It started right there across the street at the precinct.
You know that picture of that George Floyd thing, right?
This was just a public lynching. That's a tradition here in the West.
5 years ago, Minneapolis went up into flames after Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd outside a convenience store.
George Floyd's arrest and death in police custody on Monday set off protests in the Twin Cities.
5 years later, what's it like? Is crime better?
I ran away from there and been out here since then. I'm a drug addict.
We went to Minneapolis and ended up in its most dangerous neighborhood on a rainy night where we confronted a different problem in the city.
I've already done overdose about 11, 12 times.
Come with us to find out the answer to all these questions and visit Minneapolis.
The first night that the National Guard set up was on our block, actually.
A local named Ben showed us around the site of the riots and where Floyd was killed. For full disclosure, Ben is also my cousin, and he lived just blocks away from where it all began.
Here it begins. So I could see this building go up in flames the first night, like the fire started. Another building was partially built at the time. It was like that and the Wendy's up here. So they, took it all down and then rebuilt it. Any speculations and theories about, the person, I think they call him Umbrella Man.
Well, the FBI is asking for your help tonight.
He's all in black and clearly on a mission to ooh, let's burn down the AutoZone.
And by the way, do you call it a protest?
So of course, this is where the theories of all the paid protesters came from. The Umbrella Man, I still remember seeing the clip, dressed in all black, black umbrella, of course, to shield, not from the weather, it was to shield himself from above head cameras. He was just walking up and down the street and indiscriminately just destroying windows, vandalizing, defacing properties. And we saw that, not just him, but they were all over the city. There were agitators all over the city, encouraging crowds to engage in violence, vandalize. That was just the one that made it on camera.
Or a riot. Depends on what's going on. There was a different character once it got dark.
This is what it looked like from his front yard, according to videos he posted to his Instagram.
Word got out and you started seeing license plates from further and further away. We had our little neighborhood watch and people are stashing things in the alley. I think that there had been so much distrust and so many, rough things that have happened with, the MPD that it was just everyone's at home. People couldn't distract themselves, and they saw what they saw and came out. Buildings can be rebuilt. It's the people that live in them that I focus more on.
Ben then took us to the memorial, around which we saw murals, the names of police brutality victims, and other George Floyd monuments. So wait, this is the first monument here?
So stuff started in the middle over there and around where he was killed.
It just so happens, by the way, that today is George Floyd's birthday. He would have turned 52 years old today, October 14th.
This was just a public lynching. That's a tradition here in the West. My name's Maestro. I've been caretaking out here since May. 5 years later, this was looking bad. It was worn out teddy bears and fake flowers. But I've just been volunteering, to treat it like sacred land and keep it alive.
Is this the convenience store where he was right before?
They've been here forever, so they're like family to the community. The whole time they selling poison, sugar and tobacco. But it was gonna blow up that place, that's propane tanks and everything. And across the street, that was a live gas station. It's a book called Without Sanctuary. It's on public lynching. And you'll see the crowds. They travel from all over to see a nigga with no dick, no toes, burnt up. Times are not changing.
You don't think it's improved?
No. I mean, no. This is a system. This is created to be this way. So no, they have no intentions on improving it.
Do you want America to be toppled?
It's gonna be toppled. It's toppling itself. It's self-destructing. So it ain't even nothing about what I want. It's just already what's in the cards for it.
In the 5 years since, has there been police reform?
No, I don't think so. There's been major changes in this neighborhood. This was a violent neighborhood before that. And soon after it was, but it recovered and there's no more violence. But as far as the police go, no, they are under contract to give up their minds and do whatever those documents say that they signed and pledged to. It's energy here, you know what I'm saying? It's energy with what he did, and then it's energy with the spirituality that I'm bringing with the flowers and the foliage. Most people want to see him chalked out. When they come to shit like, they want to see some fucked up shit. Well, I got a surprise for him.
Were you here in the protest?
I just came the first night, and then I got away from over here. No, I wasn't. I ain't with all that. Dog, why people got guns in the middle of this, I ain't with all that. You piss the people off, you piss the people off. My thing, fuck the businesses, fuck all that. That's all material. That's not spirit. It ain't black businesses, it ain't business that support us. It's, so we don't really got that much connection to it. But for me, it's for the fact that people got off their couch and came out their house behind his death.
Yeah.
They have never done that in history for nobody, that many people across the country, Show me the melanated man's power.
What brought people off their couches took place right outside this convenience store when Derek Chauvin, a cop from Minneapolis' 3rd Precinct, knelt on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds before 3 other police officers in a crowd. The autopsy says Floyd died from cardiopulmonary arrest, though it noted that he also had fentanyl and meth in his system. But the city of Minneapolis was not prepared for what would happen next.
George Floyd's arrest and death in police custody on Monday set off protests in the Twin Cities.
This right here is the first building that was burned down in the wake of George Floyd's death in late May 2020. It was totally leveled and has been rebuilt, and most of the buildings in this area have been rebuilt. That Coliseum right there, a historic building, only the brick facade remained. They had to rebuild the rest, and I think a $35 million project. And then, of course, that right there is the 3rd Police Precinct that Derek Chauvin was from, that it also was destroyed and is now being replaced with the Minneapolis Democracy Center. Overall, the riots set 160 buildings on fire, caused $500 million in property damage, and 40 lots remain empty.
Wendy's got set on fire. They rebuilt that. That used to be Arby's, Target.
Got vandalized
and they rebuilt them too. And
what was your take on the uprising that took place? Does it bother you as a local?
It bothered me in a sense because they tried to sweep it under the rug and portray this guy as something that he wasn't, and then they just tried to justify the whole situation. But if you look at the video, clearly he's literally being murdered in front of thousands of people. Yeah, crime is worse.
Do you blame the uprising on that at all?
No, that's just nature within itself.
So the 3rd Police Precinct in Minneapolis was notorious prior to the arrest and killing of George Floyd. From 2007 to 2017, it paid $2.1 million in misconduct claims against Minneapolis residents, and the Minneapolis Star-Tribune described it as a playground for sort of bad cops. A DOJ report, by the way, in 2023 found that Minneapolis Police Department in general had a history of misconduct and mistreatment of minorities. That dark history dates back decades, and it made some believe Floyd was part of a pattern. In 2002, MPD cops...
So that is correct. There were a lot of payouts due to Minneapolis police crossing the line. And that, of course, is where you would invest more money into policing, into better training, into increasing your police force, and to invest more money in police PR, where, of course, you can get police officers out in the community, taking part in community activities, because, of course, that barrier of touch needs to be broken. We need to understand who our police officers are, who are they serving our community. What happened due to the 2020 protests was the exact opposite. You had liberals in the streets chanting, defund the police, defund the police. That, of course, exacerbates the issue. It's not going to resolve it. We took the wrong direction. Yes, police were a problem. Yes, it could have been improved, but defunding them was the exact last thing you wanted to do.
Killed a handcuffed Christopher Burns with a chokehold. In 2010, cops killed David Smith, also a black man, and also by kneeling on him. And in 2016, mass protests broke out after Philando Castile was shot 7 times in front of his girlfriend and daughter in a traffic stop in a town just miles away. We then interviewed some locals in the area to get their perspective on what happened that night, and also whether it should have.
Before the riots, it was pretty peaceful and calm, but things got out of control that night, and the police didn't come to help. The firefighters didn't come to put out the fires, and things went just crazy. And then it spread from here.
Do you blame them more than the rioters for that?
I really do, because normally we have peace and harmony and Minnesota nice around here, and we get along regardless of ethnic groups. I don't even know who the rioters were. I didn't recognize any of them.
Have you lived in Minnesota a long time?
30 years.
What's your take on the MPD?
Well, there had been kind of a history of them being trigger happy, and I think George Floyd was a boiling point where it boiled over, and the people said they had enough.
Since then, crime has picked up. To what do you attribute that?
I don't think it's picked up too much. It's moved from the north side down to Lake Street, and that's mainly because there's drug activity every corner, every nook and cranny. There's homelessness, and there's fentanyl, there's heroin, and they don't prosecute.
Drug. Should they?
Well, yeah, if you're out there dealing drugs and people are dying.
Did they ever defund the police?
Well, they didn't officially defund it, but they put a lot of restrictions on what the officers could do.
The city was burning down and it was really scary.
We lived really close to where it was mostly going down at the time, and I would be awake and I would hear all the helicopters and like see all the lights, and it was like super scary because at the time I was like 10 probably.
Yeah. Business owners probably weren't very happy, but I think people were happy that like people were making sound.
And it
like,
depends on where you're from kind of in the city, because I know a lot of the people who are like in the suburbs saw it as like unnecessary rioting and like stuff like that.
Does the MPD have a bad rap?
Yes.
Yeah.
I plan to become a police officer and actually work in that department, but yes, they do. Yeah.
What are Minneapolis' biggest problems?
They have lots of problems. I think policing is right at the top of the list, and not just the policing problems they had with the police themselves, but now the lack of them and the sense of insecurity that a lot of people have, that crime is worse than it has been. And in some ways I think it is, some ways I think it's an exaggeration. But I think that whole Derek Chauvin thing, I mean, that just smeared the reputation of Minnesota. I mean, it was just blatant. I mean, nobody could misunderstand what they saw happening on that street, and then we have the subsequent riots and the damage done to people that it shouldn't have happened to. I mean, I never did understand why we're burning down the buildings of immigrants just because of a rogue cop.
It's interesting to hear how many people suggest.
Again, agree with that sentiment exactly. Why are we burning down? Matter of fact, who was doing the burning of the buildings? Who was engaging in burning the buildings down? That's what we all want to know. And I believe that a lot of people came here by plane. They flew into Minneapolis, and they were arsonists. They were here with a plan, and that was to incite violence. Their job was to stir up rage amongst the crowd and get them, of course, to go with the destruction of a great American city. The young girl that wants to become a cop, I'm happy. That's great. That's what we need. That's great. I'm all for it. I think we need to invest a lot of money in the police force. I believe to have a great police force, you need to have a combination of high-level competency. That's, of course, in enforcing the law, use of your weapons and your other tools. Also, in terms of PR and community efforts. Again, police need to be engaged in their communities because the media, again, legacy media is operated by liberals. They have an agenda, of course, of having class warfare, whether it's black, white, whether it's male, female. They also do civilian and community members versus their police officers. So, of course, they'll utilize all their platforms to get police officers to detach emotionally from situations versus getting people upset and enraged at the sight of police officers. Guys, we're all here to live amongst one another in unity and assist one another. But again, this liberal propaganda arm, they have an agenda. And of course, if you don't understand the agenda, you will never understand what's going on.
Suggested that outsiders may have ratcheted up the protests and caused most of the damage. You may have seen viral videos in 2020 of the looting that took place in this Target, which, by the way, Target never disclosed the total amount of property damage or the renovation cost, but this was a central site of the looting that took place during the uprising. Over and over, we heard from locals that the MPD were corrupt and, according to some, deeply racist. And from two bikers, we heard harrowing stories like this.
12 years ago today, I found the victim of kidnapping and brutal sexual assault in a park in East Phillips because I literally showed up about 2 seconds after it happened, and the assailant was still in the area. And the cops didn't gather evidence from the crime scene because they didn't set up a fucking crime scene. And it took 12 years for the assailant to finally get sentenced.
So the MPD has, in your eyes, a bad track record.
That night they did. And I feel as if the victim and her husband, they have a very strong case against the city of Minneapolis for negligence at best. I'm going to be urging the judge on the 12th of November to explore all things maximum for this individual, because he is a sick dog that needs to get put down for a very long time.
At this point, it was time for some data and also for us to go to the city's worst neighborhood to visit ground zero of crime today. But before we share that data and go to the hood, please make sure to subscribe to this channel if you support our mission of capturing the world without bias or fear. And if you enjoy our videos and want the same nonpartisan approach to the news, become a Roka member. Every morning, we send our members a deep dive breaking down the biggest topic in news without bias or fear. If you want unbiased news and to support our channel, visit the link in the pinned comment in our description. Now back to Minneapolis. After Floyd was killed, the Minneapolis Police Department saw an exodus of cops. From 2019 to 2023, the MPD lost 300 employees. In some neighborhoods, cops stopped responding to calls, and crime spiked far more than it did in other major cities post-COVID.
Minneapolis is caught in what some call an urban doom loop. As crime increases, businesses leave, the tax base shrinks, and everything continues to decline.
And since then, crime fell, but in 2024, homicides rose again. Homicides are over double what they were in the 2010s. But what's really gotten worse, and we saw this firsthand, was its opioid issue. We are now in Phillips, which is the most dangerous neighborhood in the Twin Cities area. And one thing we're seeing here is you have so many vacant storefronts, you have a bunch of closed businesses, you have across the street an empty cellular building, that's all it says. You have a bunch of empty storefronts. It also has an average income of about $31,000, which is less than half of what it is for Minneapolis on average.
I've had 6 bikes stolen from me that were legitimately mine. Well, you heard of that, that George Floyd thing, right? After that killing, there's been a little bit of a shortage of Minneapolis police.
Yeah.
So they've been told they're supposed to concentrate on the violent crimes, miscellaneous crap, like pulling someone over for a tail light out, or different things like that, or coming to someone, unless they're not doing nothing, coming to investigate a stolen bike, You never see them,
but so there have been a decline in the number of cops around here?
I think so, since that Floyd thing, because they don't want to go to jail.
In a neighborhood like this, violent crime is 7 times higher in Phillips than it is in the rest of Minneapolis. It has the highest crime rate in the entire city. And one thing some people attribute that to is the decline in the number of police officers. So about 300 cops left the force in the wake of George Floyd for a number of reasons. It's not more dangerous than Miami and Los Angeles on a per capita basis. All right, what is this neighborhood like in Minneapolis?
Truthfully, it's corrupted, racial and dividing situation going on out here. I believe the George Floyd, it was very, it was passionate, but also a lot of violence. I believe the government went too far because the government should be teaching their law better, how to be better police officers and protect the city better. The businesses wasn't really the thing that mattered. It was a lot of families and a lot of black people affected by it and a lot of white Caucasian people affected by it. The business doesn't even matter. That's not even a situation of a conversation. What really mattered more was about the people and the people that were affected by it. Because that caused a lot of conflict and a lot of change, like white nationalists and people like that. They looked at the situation as well, you know what I mean?
Were you part of like the protest?
No, I was part of the praying. Yeah, I chose to pray and figure out the situation and the truth of the matter of why did that really happen.
I mean, do you think the city's gotten better or worse since 2020?
I believe it has not been no better since slavery, because that's the same thing that happened in slavery. It's the same things continue to happen as has been happening.
So you don't think the country's better now than it was with slavery?
The country's not better at all, but it's about to get better. Jesus is here, so yeah.
See how they've like changed and get.
Oh my God, the city changed so much. It's fentanyl.
Fentanyl.
And it seems like it's everywhere.
So that is something that is plaguing the Midwest, and that is fentanyl. fentanyl being brought all over the Minneapolis metro area. It's happening all over Ohio. It's all over Michigan. What we have, of course, it looks like we have just the perfect ingredients for chaos. You have lawlessness, no police officers. You have drugs rampant. Of course, George Floyd did not die from the knee from Derek Chauvin. He died from a fentanyl overdose. That was what the official reports stated. This might be one of the largest lawsuits in American history because the media and press attention was international. There were people that were, of course, protesting in Africa and Europe over George Floyd was huge. It was really, really huge. The reach was huge. And because of that, he can argue legally an unfair jury pool, because how do you find an unbiased jury that has not been swayed by what they saw on TV, newspapers, online articles, etc.? You can argue that. That's considered unconstitutional. That is the reality of what he has going for him. He's already served a lot of years in prison. And again, if he sues, a lot of these media companies will be able to, a lot of these media companies will most likely be cutting checks. If you guys remember the kid, Nicholas Sandmann, who infamously had his picture with a Native American where he was staring at the Native American. And of course, CNN and a bunch of other media outlets labeled him as like a racist, young, white, conservative, blah, blah, blah. And it went national. He was underage. It was in every tabloid. It was every headline. It went international, and it went into international markets as well. And turns out it was all false. And he was not the one that provoked the Native American. It was the other way around. And did not disclose that. And guess what happened? He ended up getting a $250 million settlement, because if they take your name, your image, your likeness, and they libel you based on their reach, you can get more money. And that's what's going to happen with Derek Chauvin. He's going to go to civil courts, and he is going to be a very rich man.
He's like, everybody's on it. It's scary. I'm scared of it. I'm scared to do that stuff. They kill you instantly, you know?
Yeah. So what should we know about Phillips? What's interesting about Phillips neighborhood?
Phillips neighborhood, there's a lot of crime there. There's all the Native Americans on fentanyl. They're like just laid out in different places on the ground. There's a lot of homelessness. They want to use drugs. They want to have no responsibility, you know?
She's not wrong. Between 2018 and 2023, opioid deaths over tripled, rising from 74 to 251. And now some big money is involved. In 2024, a Twin Cities drug ring was caught moving over 280,000 fentanyl pills from Arizona to Minnesota. They hid the pills inside stuffed animals and mailed them to local addresses. We met a young woman who gives a face to this crisis and whose story shook us for the rest of the night.
It's hard to be in the streets down here. If you're new around here, they treat you like some type of way.
Why?
I don't know. I just came out here like in the beginning of the summer. I'm from Melrose.
Where's that?
An hour and 30 minutes from here. And I have family out here. I am underage, so I was in like a youth shelter. I ran away from there in St. Paul and been out here since then. I'm a drug addict.
What do you use, if I may ask?
Betty.
Is that big around here?
Yeah.
How do you get it?
Just get it.
Yeah. You don't worry about overdosing?
I've already done overdose about 11, 12 times. It's like everything goes black and then it's like you just spawn in.
Is it Narcan? Is it Naxalone? Like what do you know
Narcan.
how they bring you back? Narcan? Are you trying to get free from the addiction?
Yes.
How do you do that?
I don't know, it's hard though.
How old are you?
17.
Where do you sleep?
Anywhere I can, honestly. Sometimes I'll like just sit on like the side right here, like of any type of building. There's this thing what we call like nodding out, and I'll just nod out and then basically fall asleep, and I'll be there for the whole night.
When and how did you first try fentanyl?
I used to have a M30 addiction, right? So when I didn't have any, I would do Fetty because it was kind of like the same thing. The first time trying it was 14, overdosed the first time. And then I stopped touching it. And then recently, since I came out here, got my hands back on it again. And then
At 14 years old, She didn't just say she tried it. She said she first OD'd at 14. Oh my gosh, that is absolutely insane. Oh my goodness. That's heartbreaking.
Since then, couldn't stop buying it. And I used to have money, you know. I used to be dressed up. I used to have everything. I had a roof over my head. Like I had everything. When I touched that, all my money was gone. I fucked up many relationships, like with my relatives and like loved ones, like all that. I know I will, cause I'm not meant for the streets. So I don't think I can take this any longer. I'm supposed to be in touch with my social workers, but I lost their numbers because I got my bag stolen and I had their number written down. The thing is, I don't know if I'm ready for sobriety. Yeah, but you know, it's best to do something when you aren't ready. It's best to change when you're not ready, you know?
This left us feeling bleak, but we do want to say this. Despite the elevated homicides and growing opioid issue, Minneapolis has areas that are thriving. Its population is steadily rising, and we also felt an extremely strong sense of community everywhere we went. In many ways, Minneapolis is on the up. As to the legacy of George Floyd, that remains unclear. Well, at least to us. As usual, we like to hold a mirror to an issue or place so that you can judge it for yourself. In this case, that picture remains largely blank as the legacy of George Floyd continues to come together.
There you guys have it. How you overtake a city, how, of course, you gut a city from the inside. Again, as long as we have lawlessness, we have drugs, things like that are going to get worse and worse. It's heartbreaking seeing people tell their individual stories because somewhere along the way, they were failed by whether it was the protection and guidance from parents or whoever her guardians were. She fell between the cracks because if there's a father in the picture, that's why I wish she would have spoke on. Is your father there? Things could have been different. But again, this is the city of Minneapolis. This is how everything is post George Floyd. George Floyd Square is still up. That's not somebody we should be celebrating. You don't have to like my opinion. George Floyd was, of course, a repeat offender. He, in fact, held up a pregnant woman and placed a gun to her pregnant stomach. He tried to pay for his food right before the incident. He tried to pay for his items with fake bills. And of course, everything happened while he was high on fentanyl. Don't believe he should be somebody that's propped up as a hero or somebody that should have statues and murals about. Because when you do that, you prop somebody up, you're holding them as a standard, somebody that you should emulate. But you guys let me know your thoughts down below. Thoughts on what's going on in the city of Minneapolis, your thoughts on George Floyd. Make sure you like, you comment, and subscribe. Deuces.